Winter came early to the Eastern Front in 1941. By November, we were already dealing with temperatures that dropped to 30 below. I was with a Wehrmacht reconnaissance unit, operating out of a forward position about 60 kilometers from Moscow. Our job was simple: patrol the frozen countryside, watch for Soviet movements, report back. Simple doesn't mean easy, not out there. The landscape was nothing but white in every direction. Flat fields covered in snow, skeletal trees, abandoned farms. The cold was so intense it hurt to breathe. You'd wrap cloth around your face, but your breath would freeze on the fabric until it became stiff as cardboard. We operated in pairs, usually. You and one other man, moving through that endless white, trying not to freeze or get shot. My partner was Corporal Werner, a quiet man from Bavaria who'd been a schoolteacher before the war. Good at reading maps, better at staying calm. On December 3rd, we were sent to check on a small village that hadn't reported any activity in days. It was about 8 kilometers from our position, straight across open country. We set out at dawn, when there was enough light to see but not enough to make good targets. The walk took us 3 hours. The village appeared on the horizon gradually, a cluster of dark shapes against the snow. As we got closer, Werner stopped. "Listen," he said. I stopped, listened. At first I heard nothing but the wind. Then I caught it voices, faint, carried on the air, speaking German. We approached more carefully after that, weapons ready. The voices grew clearer, men talking, laughing even. It sounded like a whole unit, maybe 20 or 30 soldiers, having casual conversations somewhere in the village. When we reached the first building, the voices stopped. Just like that, mid-sentence, mid-laugh, complete silence. We moved through the village systematically. 8 buildings, all empty. No footprints in the snow except our own. No fires, no equipment, no sign anyone had been there in weeks, but we'd both heard them. Werner's hands were shaking, and not from the cold. "Maybe it carried from somewhere else," he said. "Sound travels strange in this weather." We searched 2 more buildings, found nothing. Then we heard them again. The voices came from behind us now, from the buildings we'd already checked. Clear as anything, men talking in German, discussing routine things. Someone complaining about the coffee. Another man laughing about a letter from home. We went back to the first building. Empty, silent. But the moment we stepped outside, we heard the voices resume inside the building we just left. This continued for an hour. The voices always came from wherever we weren't. When we stood still, they surrounded us, coming from every building, every direction, overlapping conversations that made no sense, but we never saw anyone. Werner wanted to leave. I agreed. We started back toward our lines. That's when we heard our own voices. From behind us, coming from the village, we heard ourselves talking. My voice saying something about the cold. Werner's voice responding. A conversation we'd had that morning, repeated word for word, coming from the empty buildings. We didn't run. You can't run in deep snow with full gear, but we moved as fast as we could. For the entire 8-kilometer walk back, we heard voices behind us. Sometimes they were distant. Sometimes they sounded close enough to touch. Always in German. Always familiar, though I couldn't place most of them. When we got back to our position, we reported what we'd found. The officer didn't seem surprised. He told us that 3 other patrols had reported similar things in different locations. Villages that echoed with phantom conversations. Empty positions that sounded fully manned. He said the cold does things to sound, to how our ears work. He said we were probably hearing echoes from somewhere else, carried across the frozen landscape in strange ways. But that night, while I was trying to sleep in our dugout, I heard Werner's voice outside, having a conversation with someone. I got up, looked outside. Werner was asleep in his bedroll next to me. The voice continued. Werner's voice, talking to my voice, having a conversation we'd never had, discussing things we'd never said. After a while, I stopped listening to what the voices were saying. Because once you paid attention, really paid attention, you realized something was wrong with them. They weren't quite right. The rhythm was off, the pauses too long or too short, like someone or something was imitating human speech without quite understanding how it worked. I never went back to that village. Werner was killed 2 weeks later in an artillery barrage. But sometimes, on quiet nights, I still hear his voice, having conversations we never finished, saying things he never got to say. And the voice is getting better at sounding human. I met Anna in the winter of 1943 in a railway station outside Smolensk. I was Soviet infantry. She was a railway worker, one of the women who kept the trains running while the men fought. The station had become a makeshift hospital and supply depot, a crucial link in the lines connecting Moscow to the front. Anna worked the night shift, managing manifests and coordinating arrivals. I was there recovering from frostbite, assigned to light duties while my feet healed. We talked during the long nights when there wasn't much else to do. She told me about growing up in Leningrad, about her brother who was fighting somewhere near Stalingrad. I told her about my family's farm in Ukraine. The station itself was an old building, pre-revolutionary, with high ceilings and ornate ironwork that seemed out of place in the middle of this frozen wasteland. During the day, it was crowded with soldiers, supplies, refugees. At night, it was just a handful of us, Anna at her desk, a couple of sentries, the wounded sleeping in the waiting area. Around 3 a.m, trains would sometimes come through without stopping. Supply trains heading to the front, moving too fast to bother with our small station. You'd hear the whistle first, then the rumble of the engine, then it would blast past in a fury of steam and noise. One night in February, Anna and I were sharing tea when we heard a whistle in the distance. "That's odd," she said, checking her schedule. "Nothing's supposed to come through until dawn." The whistle came again, closer. We went outside to the platform. The temperature was maybe 40 below. The stars were so bright they looked like ice crystals frozen to the sky. The train appeared from the east, moving slowly, much slower than the supply trains usually moved. As it got closer, I could see it was old, a passenger train from before the revolution, the kind you'd see in photographs from the Tsar's time. Elegant carriages with curved roofs and small windows. It shouldn't have been running. The Soviet railway system had requisitioned or scrapped those old trains years ago. The train pulled into the station and stopped. Steam hissed from the engine. The carriages sat dark and silent on the tracks. Anna looked at me. "This isn't on my schedule." We waited for someone to emerge, to explain why this antique train had appeared at our station in the middle of the night. Nobody came out. The windows remained dark. After several minutes, Anna approached the nearest carriage. I followed, my rifle ready though I wasn't sure what I was expecting to shoot. She reached for the door handle. "Maybe don't," I started to say. She opened the door. The interior was empty. Passenger seats lined both sides, covered in dust. Cobwebs stretched between the luggage racks. The carriage was freezing, colder than outside somehow. Our breath hung in thick clouds. We checked the next carriage, also empty. Then the next. All the passenger cars were the same, abandoned, frozen, covered in years of dust. When we reached the engine car, Anna stopped. "Look at this," she whispered. The nameplate on the engine read, Imperial Railway Service. Below that, a date, 1916. This train had been out of service for nearly 30 years. We went back to check the station manifest, to see if maybe this was some kind of museum piece being transported for salvage. But there was no record, no orders for it to stop here, no documentation of its departure or destination. The train sat on the tracks for 3 hours, just sat there, silent and dark, while Anna and I watched from the station. Other workers arrived for the morning shift. They saw the train too, confirmed it wasn't supposed to be there. At dawn, as the sky began to lighten, the train's whistle blew, once sharp and clear. Then it started moving, slowly at first, then faster, heading west toward the front lines. Within minutes, it had disappeared into the gray morning light. We reported it to the railway command. They had no record of any train passing through our station that night. No Imperial-era trains were in operation anywhere on the Soviet railway system. 3 days later, we heard news from the front. A German position had been overrun near Vitebsk. When Soviet forces moved in, they found all the German soldiers dead. No wounds, no signs of fighting. They'd all frozen to death in their bunkers, even though they'd had adequate fuel and supplies. The interesting thing was the timing. They'd all died at the same time, down to the minute according to their frozen watches. The same time that train had pulled out of our station. Anna and I never talked about it directly after that, but sometimes late at night, when we were alone in the station, we'd hear it. That distant whistle, getting closer, then fading away before anything appeared on the tracks. The last time I saw Anna was in March, right before my unit moved out. She looked tired, older than her years. She told me she'd been having dreams about that train. Dreams where she was inside one of those dusty carriages, sitting alone, while the train traveled through darkness, never arriving anywhere, just moving through an endless frozen night. I heard later that Anna disappeared that spring, left the station one night during her shift and never came back. They found her coat and boots on the platform, neatly arranged, as if she'd stepped out of them carefully. The tracks beside them were warm, like a train had just passed through. But no trains were scheduled that night. Sergeant Petrov was the steadiest man in our unit. Soviet sniper, been fighting since the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, survived encirclements, starvation, everything the war could throw at him. He didn't scare easy, didn't scare at all, really. That's why what happened in January of 1944 shook us all so badly. We were positioned outside a town called Pustashka, about 500 kilometers south of Leningrad. The Germans were in retreat, but it was slow, brutal work pushing them back. They'd fight for every meter of frozen ground, then fall back and make us do it again. Our unit was tasked with holding a section of forest, watching for German movements. Petrov was in a sniper's nest he'd built in a tall pine tree, maybe 10 meters up. He'd lined it with pine branches and cloth, camouflaged it perfectly. He could sit up there for 12 hours without moving, watching through his scope. I was on watch in the dugout below with 3 other men. It was about 2 in the morning, clear night, moon reflecting off the snow bright enough to read by. Petrov came down from his nest. That alone was unusual. He never abandoned his position during a shift. He climbed down quickly, almost frantically, which was even more unlike him. When he reached the ground, I could see his face in the moonlight. He looked terrified. "There's someone else up there," he said. We looked up at the nest. We couldn't see anything from the ground. "What do you mean?" I asked. "In the nest. There's someone else in the nest with me. I felt them sit down next to me." "Did you see them?" "No, it's too dark, but I felt the branches shift when they climbed in, felt the weight of them sitting down, right next to me." Petrov was not a man who imagined things. If he said someone was up there, we believed him. The problem was, nobody could have climbed up without us hearing. That tree creaked and swayed with any movement. "Did they say anything?" one of the others asked. "No, they just sat there, breathing. I could hear them breathing right next to my ear." We grabbed our weapons and flashlights. I shined a light up into the nest. Empty, just the pine branches and Petrov's equipment. "Check around the tree," Petrov said. "Check for tracks." We circled the tree, examining the snow carefully. Only one set of prints led up to it, Petrov's own tracks from when he'd climbed up hours earlier. The snow around the tree was otherwise undisturbed. "Maybe you dozed off," someone suggested. "Had a dream." Petrov shook his head. "I was awake, I know what I felt." We convinced him to go back up, said we'd keep watch, that it must have been the cold playing tricks. He was reluctant, but duty was duty. He climbed back up into the nest. 10 minutes later, we heard him talking. Not loudly, murmuring like he was having a conversation with someone. We called up to him, asked if he was all right. "Fine," he called down. "Just talking to myself, staying awake." But we could hear two voices, Petrov's and another one, quieter, harder to make out, but definitely there. This continued for an hour. Petrov would call down occasionally, tell us everything was fine. But we could hear that second voice up there with him, having a conversation we couldn't quite hear. At dawn, when his shift ended, Petrov climbed down. He looked exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "What do you mean?" "We heard someone up there with you, two voices." Petrov stared at me for a long moment. There was no one up there. I was alone the whole time. "Petrov, we all heard it, two people talking." He shook his head slowly. "If there was another voice, it wasn't me making it. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't say a word after I climbed back up." We reported it to our lieutenant. He dismissed it as exhaustion, stress, the cold, ordered Petrov to get some sleep and assigned someone else to the sniper's nest. Private Konstantin took the next shift. Young kid, eager to prove himself. He climbed up into the nest around 7 in the morning. At noon, we called up to check on him. No response. We called again, still nothing. I climbed up to check on him. When I reached the nest, Konstantin was sitting there, rifle across his lap, staring straight ahead through the scope. I spoke to him. He didn't respond. I shook his shoulder. He was frozen solid, dead for hours, though he'd only climbed up 5 hours earlier. In temperatures that were cold, yes, but not cold enough for that. Not that fast. When we brought him down, we found something strange. His lips were covered in frost, frozen together. But underneath, his mouth was open, and his vocal cords were damaged, shredded, like he'd been screaming for hours. We abandoned that sniper's nest, cut down the tree, burned the branches. The lieutenant ordered us to find new positions farther from that spot. But here's what I never told anyone. When I climbed up to check on Konstantin, just before I shook his shoulder, I felt something brush past me, like someone moving in a very tight space, squeezing past me in the nest. I felt the branches shift with their weight. I turned to look. Nothing there, just empty air and pine branches. But the space suddenly felt crowded, like there were many people packed into that small nest, all of them pressed close, all of them silent and still. I got out of there fast. Petrov didn't talk about what happened in that nest, refused to discuss it. But a month later, right before he was killed by German artillery, he pulled me aside. "That thing in the tree," he said. "It told me something. Said it had been waiting in that tree since before the war, since before there was a war. It said it was waiting for its turn to speak." Its turn to speak about what? It didn't say, but it told me that when it was finally its turn, everyone would have to listen. Everyone would have to hear what it had to say, and it said that time was coming soon. I asked him what he thought it meant. He just looked at me with those hollow eyes and said, "I think it means the war doesn't end. Not really. I think it means whatever we're fighting, whatever we're dying for, it's not what we think it is. We're feeding something, feeding it with all this death, all this cold, all this suffering. And when it's fed enough, it's going to speak." Petrov died the next day. But sometimes when I'm alone on watch, I hear voices in the trees. Quiet conversations too far away to make out, getting closer each year. Getting ready to speak. In the summer of 1944, I was with a Polish unit fighting alongside Soviet forces, pushing west through what had been occupied territory. We liberated towns, villages, places that had been under German control for years. Usually, we'd find them half destroyed, populations decimated, everything valuable looted. Outside a town called Kalabazeg, we found a manor house. Big place, probably belonged to some aristocrat before the war. It was intact, which was unusual. The Germans had used it as an officer's quarters, abandoned it maybe a week before we arrived. We secured the building, checked for traps or stragglers. Nothing. The place was empty but well preserved. Officers had lived comfortably there, real beds, intact furniture, even a phonograph in the main hall. My unit was assigned to billet there for a few days while command decided our next move. It was luxury compared to what we were used to. Roof over our heads, rooms with doors, even some of the German supplies left behind. I was going through one of the upstairs bedrooms when I found the photograph. It was sitting on a desk, propped up in a silver frame, black and white, good quality. It showed a group of German officers standing in front of this very manor. I recognized the entrance, the distinctive arch over the front door. There were maybe 12 men in the photo, dressed in Wehrmacht uniforms, posing formally for the camera. What caught my attention was that they all looked wrong, not disfigured or injured, just wrong. Their faces were too still, too blank, like dolls arranged in uniforms. Their eyes in particular seemed off, too dark, like holes in their faces. I showed it to Lieutenant Kowalski. He looked at it, shrugged. "Germans," he said, "probably taken when they first moved in." "Look at their faces," I said. He looked again, closer this time. His expression changed. "That is odd, probably just a bad photo, bad lighting." He set it back on the desk. We didn't think much more about it. That night, Private Noack woke us all up screaming. We found him in his room, pressed into the corner, pointing at the wall. "They're in here," he kept saying. "They're in here with us." We searched the room. Empty. Noack swore he'd seen figures standing around his bed watching him sleep, silhouettes in the darkness. When we turned on the lights, they disappeared, but he'd felt them there, felt their presence in the room. Kowalski put it down to exhaustion, nerves. We all had nightmares. This was nothing new. But the next morning, we found something strange. Someone had moved the photograph from the upstairs bedroom to the main hall. It sat on the mantelpiece above the fireplace, facing the room where we'd slept. Nobody admitted to moving it. We questioned everyone. The house had been locked, sentries posted. No one had seen anyone move anything. I looked at the photograph again. The men in it looked different. Not dramatically, I couldn't point to anything specific, but different. Their positions had changed slightly. The way they stood, the expressions on those blank faces. "It's just your imagination," Kowalski said, but he looked unsettled too. That afternoon, we found more photographs. They'd been hidden in the manor, stuffed in drawers, tucked behind paintings, stored in trunks in the attic. Dozens of them, all showing the same group of German officers, always in front of the manor, always in slightly different positions. What made them disturbing was that each photograph seemed to be part of a sequence, like someone had taken multiple shots of these men moving, approaching the camera. In the earliest photos, they stood far away, just shapes against the building. In later ones, they were closer. The final photograph showed them right in front of the camera, those blank faces filling the frame, those dark eyes staring directly ahead. We gathered all the photographs, locked them in a trunk. Kowalski wanted to burn them, but something stopped him. We just locked them away and tried to forget about them. That night, none of us slept well. We all heard things, footsteps in the halls, doors opening and closing, whispered conversations in German. When we'd investigate, we'd find nothing. Empty rooms, silent corridors. Around 3 a.m, I got up to use the latrine. As I passed through the main hall, I saw them. The photographs were back, not just the one from the mantelpiece, all of them. They'd been arranged in a circle on the floor, maybe 30 or 40 pictures, all facing inward toward the center of the room. And standing in the center of that circle, looking down at the photographs, was a figure. A German officer, one of the men from the pictures. He stood perfectly still, his back to me, wearing a Wehrmacht uniform that looked decades old, dusty and faded. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I just stood there watching him. Slowly he bent down and picked up one of the photographs, studied it. Then he looked up. Not at me, at the wall beside me where there hung a mirror. He looked at his reflection, and his reflection looked wrong. In the mirror, I could see his face, or where his face should have been. In the reflection, there was nothing, just a smooth, blank surface where his features should be. The figure stood there for a long moment, looking at his own absent face. Then he set the photograph down carefully, turned and walked toward the front door. He moved stiffly, mechanically, passed within a meter of me without acknowledging my presence. He opened the front door and walked outside into the darkness. I ran to wake the others. By the time we got back to the main hall, the photographs were gone, all of them. The trunk we'd locked them in was empty. We searched the entire manor. Nothing. We left that place the next morning. Didn't wait for orders, just packed up and moved out. Command was angry, but we didn't care. Before we left, I took one last look at the front of the manor. There, in the dirt beside the entrance, I saw footprints. Many of them, arranged in a group as if people had stood there recently, posing for a photograph. But the footprints didn't lead anywhere. They started right there in front of the entrance and went nowhere. Like the people who'd made them had simply appeared, stood there for a moment, then disappeared again. I think about those photographs sometimes, about those blank faces getting closer and closer with each picture, and I wonder if the sequence was finished, or if somewhere, someone is still taking photographs, and we're getting closer to the final one. The one where those blank faces press right up against the lens, where there's nothing left between them and whoever's looking. December 1942. I was a field postal clerk with a Soviet unit near Stalingrad. Not a combat position, which probably saved my life. My job was to sort and distribute mail to the troops, letters from home, packages, anything that kept morale up during those terrible months. The mail system was chaotic. Whole units would be wiped out before their letters arrived. We'd get bags of mail for soldiers who'd been dead for weeks. Usually, we'd send those letters back or distribute them to survivors from the same units who might want to contact the families. In mid-December, during the worst of the fighting, I received a bag of mail that had been delayed somewhere in the system. Letters dated from September and October, nearly 3 months old. The addresses were for soldiers in the 308th Rifle Division, which I knew had been decimated near the Volga in November. I started sorting through them, setting aside the ones for men I knew were dead or missing. There were maybe 60 letters in total. As I worked, I noticed something odd. 5 of the letters were addressed to soldiers I didn't recognize. The names weren't on any roster I had. The unit designation was Rifle Division, but these names didn't exist in our records. I thought maybe they were clerical errors, wrong unit numbers written on the envelopes, but the return addresses were different too. The towns these letters came from, I couldn't find them on any map. Small villages, supposedly in Russia, but with names that didn't match any place I'd heard of. I opened one of the letters. I know that was against regulations, but something about them bothered me. The letter was handwritten in Russian, the penmanship neat and careful. It was from a woman to her husband, a soldier. She wrote about daily life, about their children, about the harvest. Normal things. But as I read, I realized the details were wrong. She mentioned crops we don't grow in that region, described weather that didn't match our climate, talked about neighbors with names that didn't sound Russian. More disturbing were the dates. She mentioned seeing him last month in September when he'd come home on leave. But the 308th Division hadn't been granted leave in September. They'd been in continuous combat since July. I opened another letter, then another. All 5 letters were similar, normal correspondence on the surface, but filled with details that didn't match reality, places that didn't exist, events that hadn't happened. One letter mentioned a holiday I'd never heard of. Another described a family gathering at a house that, according to the address, should be in a town that German forces had occupied since 1941. I showed the letters to my commanding officer, Captain Volkov. He read through them, frowning. "These are forgeries," he said. "German intelligence work. They plant fake letters to confuse us, to make us think our mail system is compromised." That made sense, except for one problem. The letters had come through our own mail system, mixed in with genuine letters from real families. They hadn't been intercepted or planted. They'd arrived the same way all our mail arrived. Volkov ordered me to destroy them. I burned 4 of them immediately, but I kept one. I'm not sure why. Something about it felt important. The letter I kept was from a woman named Katia to a soldier named Dmitry Sokolov. She wrote about missing him, about their daughter's birthday, about waiting for him to come home. It was tender, personal. Nothing obviously wrong with it, except that neither Katia nor Dmitry Sokolov existed in any records. That night I had a dream. I was walking through a village I didn't recognize in winter, snow everywhere. The houses were built in a style I'd never seen, not Russian, not European, just wrong somehow. The proportions were off, the angles strange. I walked past a house with yellow shutters, and through the window I saw a woman sitting at a table, writing a letter by candlelight. She looked up, saw me watching, and smiled. Then she went back to writing. When I woke up, I found snow on my boots. Fresh snow, still cold, slowly melting on the floor beside my bed. But it hadn't snowed that night. The ground outside was bare. After that, letters started appearing in our mail bags addressed to soldiers who didn't exist. Not many, 1 or 2 a week, but consistent. Always the same pattern. Names not in our records. Return addresses from places that didn't exist. Content that seemed normal but was filled with impossible details. I tried to track the pattern. Where were these letters coming from? How were they entering our mail system? I contacted postal clerks at other units, asked if they'd seen anything similar. 3 of them had. Same thing, occasional letters addressed to non-existent soldiers from impossible places. All of us had started noticing them around the same time, in late 1942. One of those clerks, a man named Isiv, told me something that made my blood run cold. He'd kept one of the letters like I had. He'd been carrying it in his pocket for weeks. One night, he dreamed about the person who wrote it. Dreamed he was in their house, watching them write the letter. The woman in his dream had looked at him and spoken, though he couldn't hear the words. The next morning, he found his pockets full of dirt. Not mud, dry dirt like soil from a grave. Isiv died a week later. Not in combat, he just didn't wake up one morning. The doctor said his heart had stopped, but he was only 23 years old, healthy. When they prepared his body, they found dirt in his mouth, packed between his teeth under his tongue. I burned the letter I'd kept, burned it immediately, didn't tell anyone. But the dreams didn't stop. I kept seeing that village, those strange houses, that woman writing her letter, and each time she'd look up at me and smile, like she knew I was watching, like she was waiting for me to understand something. The war ended, I survived, went home, tried to forget. But every year in December I receive a letter. It's addressed to me at wherever I'm living. The return address is always different, always some impossible place that doesn't exist on any map. The postmarks are real from real post offices, but when I try to track them, the trail goes nowhere. I never open them anymore. I burn them immediately. But I know what they say. They all say the same thing, the same message that woman in my dreams was trying to tell me. We're still waiting. We're still writing. One day you'll write back. And when you do, you'll understand where we are. You'll understand that some places exist only in the space between sender and receiver, only in the moment when a letter is written but not yet read. And you'll understand that we've been waiting here in this place, writing letters that can never arrive, because we can't leave until someone writes back. I'm 78 years old now. I still receive those letters, one every December like clockwork. Last week I found myself sitting at my desk in the middle of the night, pen in hand, paper in front of me. I don't remember sitting down. I don't remember deciding to write. But I'd already written 3 pages. A letter addressed to Katia, responding to things she wrote in that letter I burned 60 years ago. Things I shouldn't remember, things I couldn't possibly know. I tore it up, burned it, swore I'd never let it happen again. But my hand remembers the words, and each night I feel the pull a little stronger, the need to finish what I started, to write back, to finally send a letter to that impossible place where they're all waiting. I don't know how much longer I can resist. Which story scared you the most? Leave a comment below and subscribe for more real horror stories. Winter of 1942. The Eastern Front had become a graveyard of frozen metal and forgotten men. I was part of a German supply unit tasked with reaching an isolated outpost near the village of Arzhev, deep in Soviet territory. The cold out there wasn't just cold, it was something alive, something that wanted to crawl inside your bones and stay there forever. We'd been moving for 3 days through endless white nothing, trees bent under the weight of ice. The sky was the color of old steel. Everything silent except for the crunch of our boots and the occasional crack of branches breaking under snow they couldn't hold anymore. Our commanding officer, Lieutenant Cross, was a thin man with hollow eyes who barely spoke. He'd been on the Eastern Front since the invasion began, and you could see it had carved something out of him, left him empty in places where a person should be full. On the 3rd night, we stopped to make camp in a dense birch forest. The trees stood so close together you couldn't see more than 20 meters in any direction. We lit no fires, orders were strict about that. Smoke could be seen from kilometers away, and Soviet partisans moved through these woods like ghosts. I was on second watch, sometime around 2 in the morning when I heard it, singing, faint at first. So faint I thought maybe it was just the wind playing tricks, the way wind does when it moves through frozen branches. But then it grew clearer. A woman's voice, high and sweet, singing something in Russian. The melody was slow, mournful, like a lullaby for the dead. I woke Cross immediately. He listened for a moment, his face expressionless in the darkness. Then he gathered 4 of us, me, Fisher, Meyer, and a young private named Beck who still had pink in his cheeks despite everything. We investigate, Cross whispered. Quietly, could be civilians, could be bait. We moved through the trees following that voice. It never got louder or softer, just stayed at the same distance no matter how far we walked. The singing continued without pause, without breath, just an endless stream of melody floating through the frozen air. After maybe 20 minutes, we found the source, a clearing, small, circular, and in the center, half buried in snow, was a wooden church. Old, the kind that had probably stood there for centuries, its walls dark with age and weather. The singing was coming from inside. Cross signaled for us to approach. We moved slowly, weapons ready, breath forming small clouds in the darkness. The church had no door, just an empty doorway leading into black nothing. Cross went in first. We followed. Inside, the air felt different. Not warmer, but thicker somehow, like breathing through cloth. Our flashlights cut weak beams through the darkness, illuminating pieces of the interior. Wooden pews covered in snow that had drifted through holes in the roof. An altar at the far end, bare except for a single candle burning with a steady flame, and the singing. Louder now. Definitely a woman's voice, definitely Russian, definitely coming from somewhere in this church, but there was no one there. We searched every corner, behind the altar, between the pews, in the small vestry room to the side. Nothing. No footprints in the snow. No sign anyone had been here in months, maybe years. But the singing continued. Beck's hands were shaking. Fisher kept muttering prayers under his breath. Even Cross looked unsettled, though he tried to hide it. "We're leaving," he finally said. As we turned to go, the singing stopped. Just cut off mid-note like someone had placed a hand over the singer's mouth. The silence that followed was worse than the singing. We hurried out of that church and back to our camp. Nobody spoke about what we'd heard. Nobody wanted to. We broke camp at first light and continued toward our objective. 2 days later, we reached the outpost we'd been sent to resupply. It was abandoned. Not destroyed, not overrun, just empty. Supplies still stacked in the storage room. Weapons in the armory. Personal effects in the bunks. But no men, no bodies, no signs of struggle. And carved into the wooden wall above the main doorway in neat Cyrillic letters was a single word. Meyer translated it for us. Singing. We left that place the same day. Command never questioned why we returned without completing our mission. I think they already knew something was wrong with that sector. Too many units had gone silent in that area. Too many men had simply vanished into the white. I never went back to the Eastern Front after that winter. Got transferred west, survived the war, came home. But sometimes, late at night when everything is quiet, I still hear it, that woman's voice, singing in Russian, never stopping, never breathing. And I know somehow that she's still there, in that church, in that clearing, waiting for someone else to find her. February 1943. Stalingrad had fallen, and the entire German 6th Army with it. But there were still scattered units all along the front, isolated pockets of men trying to hold positions that no longer had any strategic value. We were one of those units, 12 of us, holding a partially collapsed bunker complex about 40 kilometers north of Kursk. Our orders were simple: maintain observation of the road, report any Soviet movement, and wait for relief that we all knew wasn't coming. The cold that winter was beyond description. 40 degrees below zero some nights, 50 on the worst ones. Men died in their sleep, just froze solid in their bedrolls. We burned everything we could find for heat: furniture, books, pieces of the bunker itself. It was never enough. On the 8th day, Corporal Richter went missing. He'd been on guard duty at the Southern Observation Post, a small concrete pillbox about 100 meters from our main bunker. When his relief went to take over at 600 hours, Richter was gone. His rifle was still there, propped against the wall. His gloves were still there, laid neatly on the floor. But Richter had vanished. Sergeant Vogel organized a search. We spent hours combing the area, but the snow was falling so thick you could barely see 10 meters ahead. We found nothing. No tracks, no blood, no sign of struggle. Vogel declared Richter a deserter and told us not to speak of it again. But I saw the fear in his eyes. He didn't believe Richter had deserted any more than the rest of us did. 3 days later, it was my turn for guard duty at the Southern Post. I arrived just after midnight, relieving a private named Hoffman who looked like he'd aged 10 years in a 4-hour shift. He didn't say anything as he left, just gave me this look, this warning look, and hurried back toward the main bunker. The pillbox was small. Concrete walls, a narrow firing slit facing south, a single wooden stool to sit on. Cold pressed in from every direction. I could see my breath in thick clouds. The only sound was wind howling across the snow. I'd been there maybe an hour when I noticed something outside, a figure, standing maybe 50 meters away, perfectly still. Just a dark shape against the white landscape. I assumed it was a tree at first. There were a few scattered along the road. But as I watched, I realized the shape was wrong. Too straight, too vertical. I grabbed my rifle and looked through the sight, trying to get a better view. It was a man, standing at attention, wearing a German uniform. My first thought was that someone had wandered away from the bunker and gotten disoriented. It happened sometimes in heavy snow. Men lost all sense of direction, walked in circles until they collapsed. I called out, "Hey, you there, get inside before you freeze." The figure didn't move. I called again, louder this time. Nothing. Against my better judgment, I left the pillbox and approached. The snow was knee-deep and every step was a struggle. The cold bit through my coat, my gloves, my boots. By the time I got close to the figure, my face felt like it had been carved from ice. It was Richter, standing perfectly upright. Arms at his sides, eyes open, frozen solid. He'd been dead for days. His skin was blue-white, his uniform crusted with frost. But he was standing there as if still on guard duty, still watching the road, still waiting for relief. I stumbled backward, nearly fell. Started shouting for help, but the wind tore my voice away before it could travel. That's when Richter's head moved, just a little. Just a slight turn, like someone checking a noise behind them. His frozen eyes shifted, found me focused. And his mouth opened. No sound came out. Just a slow, creaking movement as his frozen jaw worked open, revealing blackness inside. His arm began to rise, one finger extending, pointing back toward the pillbox. I ran. Remember making the decision. Don't remember turning around. I just ran, crashed through the snow, fell twice, got up, kept running. Behind me, I could hear something. Not footsteps. Frozen flesh doesn't make footsteps, but something. A sliding, dragging sound. Getting closer. I made it to the pillbox, slammed myself inside, grabbed my rifle. Looked out through the firing slit. Richter was standing exactly where I'd found him, 50 meters away, perfectly still, as if he'd never moved at all. I didn't leave that pillbox until dawn. When my relief arrived, I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, his face growing paler with every word. Not the first, he finally said. Hoffman saw the same thing. So did Becker the night before. We're all seeing him out there. Different positions, different times, but always the same. Always Richter, always watching. That afternoon, Sergeant Vogel ordered the Southern Observation Post abandoned. We pulled back to the main bunker and never returned to that pillbox. 2 weeks later, relief finally arrived. By then, we were down to 7 men. The others had died officially from cold and starvation. But I knew better. I'd seen their faces in the mornings, seen the terror in their eyes. They'd seen something out there in the snow, something watching from the darkness. We were evacuated west, reorganized, sent to different units. I survived the war, came home, built a life. But I never stopped thinking about Richter, about how he died alone in the snow and somehow refused to stop standing guard, about how some duties don't end just because you freeze to death. Sometimes I wonder if he's still there, still standing in that same spot, watching the road, waiting for an enemy that stopped advancing decades ago, still on guard duty, forever. March 1944. The Soviet advance was relentless by then, pushing us back kilometer by kilometer. I was a radio operator with an infantry division somewhere in Belarus, one of thousands trying to maintain some kind of organized retreat while the Red Army tore through our lines like wet paper. Radio work on the Eastern Front was strange duty. You'd spend hours listening to static, to coded messages, to desperate calls from units being overrun. You heard men die over the radio regularly. Heard them screaming, heard the gunfire, heard the silence that came after. Then you'd adjust your frequency and move on to the next transmission. You learned not to feel it. Had to, or you'd go insane. Our unit was dug in near a small town. I never learned its name. They all blurred together after a while, waiting for orders that kept getting delayed. The situation was chaos. Nobody knew where the front line actually was anymore. Units got cut off, surrounded, disappeared. The maps we had were useless. It was my shift at the radio sometime around 300 hours when I picked up something unusual, a voice. Clear as anything, speaking German with a Berlin accent. Ist jemand da? Hello? Is anyone there? This wasn't unusual by itself. Radio discipline had collapsed. Men broke protocol constantly, especially when they were scared or isolated. But something about this voice felt off. Too calm, too steady. I responded. This is radio station Baker 7. Identify yourself. Silence, just static for maybe 30 seconds. Then the voice came back. Baker 7, thank God, I thought everyone was gone. I need assistance. My position has been overrun. I'm the only one left. Standard distress call. I'd heard dozens like it. I grabbed my notepad. What's your unit designation and location? Another pause, longer this time. The static grew louder, then softer, like someone adjusting a dial. I don't remember my unit number. We were. It's hard to think. So cold here, can you send help, please? I felt uneasy, something about the way he spoke. The pauses were wrong, the rhythm was off. Need your location, I repeated. I can't send help without coordinates. In a bunker, underground. There was fighting, everyone else. They didn't make it, but I'm still here, still waiting. You have to send someone. I looked over at my commanding officer, Hauptmann Weiss, who'd been listening from his corner of the dugout. He shook his head slowly, a clear message. Don't engage further, but the voice on the radio continued. Are you still there? Baker 7, please don't leave me alone again. It's so quiet here, so dark. I don't like the dark anymore. I'm here, I found myself saying, but I need more information. What sector are you in? Sector. The voice sounded confused. I don't. Wait, I remember now. Sector 7. Near the river, there was a bridge. Is the bridge still standing? I checked our maps. Sector 7 had been overrun 3 weeks ago. No German units remained in that area. The Soviets had pushed through and moved west. Sector 7 is behind enemy lines, I told him. There's no one there anymore. One? The voice grew quieter, distant. But I'm here. I've been here the whole time, waiting for relief. They told us someone would come. They promised. Weiss was making cutting motions across his throat, telling me to end the transmission. But I couldn't. Something about this voice held me. Long have you been waiting? I asked, static again. Long enough that I thought the connection had dropped. Then, I don't know anymore. Days, weeks. It all feels the same down here, just darkness and cold and waiting. The others said they'd come back for me, said I should guard the radio, make sure communication stayed open. But no one came. No one except you. Listen, I said carefully. I can't send help to Sector 7. It's not possible. You know there are things in the dark. The voice interrupted me. Things that move when you're not looking, things that breathe. I can hear them sometimes, getting closer. They want me to stop transmitting, want me to turn off the radio and join them in the dark. But I won't. Because someone has to maintain communications. Someone has to keep calling. Someone has to. The transmission cut off abruptly. I tried to reestablish contact, called the frequency repeatedly. Nothing, just empty static. Weiss came over, put a hand on my shoulder. Forget it, he said. Could have been anyone, could have been a Soviet trick trying to get information about our positions. Could have been one of our men who got left behind and went mad. Doesn't matter now. But it did matter. At least it did to me. Over the next week, I picked up the same transmission 3 more times. Always around 300 hours. Always the same voice. Always asking if anyone was there, if anyone could send help, if anyone remembered him. The last time I heard it, the voice was different. Weaker, raspy, like someone who hadn't had water in days. Baker 7, I know you're listening. I can feel you out there, all of you, moving west, leaving us behind, leaving all of us behind. But that's okay. I understand. The dark understands too. It's not angry, it's patient. It knows you'll come back eventually. Everyone comes back to the dark eventually. Everyone comes back to us. Then static, then nothing. I never heard the transmission again. We retreated further west over the following months, lost more ground, more men. The war dragged on. I survived barely and returned home after it all ended. But sometimes, late at night, I'll wake up and think I hear it. That voice on the radio, still calling. Still waiting for someone to acknowledge him. Still trapped in that bunker in Sector 7 in the darkness with the things that move when you're not looking. Still maintaining communications. Still believing someone will answer, and the worst part, sometimes I'm tempted to respond, to pick up any radio I can find and broadcast on that old frequency just to tell him someone remembers. Someone heard him, but I never do because I'm afraid of what might answer back. January 1945. The war was clearly lost by then, at least to anyone with eyes. The Soviets were pushing hard toward Germany itself, and we were conducting what they politely called a strategic withdrawal, but which was really just a chaotic retreat. I was part of a supply convoy, 6 trucks carrying ammunition and medical supplies, trying to reach a defensive position near the Vistula River. We'd been driving for 2 days through Poland, moving at night to avoid Soviet aircraft, hiding in forests and barns during the day. Our route took us through dense woodland, along narrow roads that barely qualified as roads at all. Just mud tracks, really, frozen solid by the January cold but still treacherous. The trucks moved slowly, headlights off, navigating by moonlight when the clouds permitted. I was in the second truck. Driver was a man named Schmidt, a Bavarian who'd been a postal worker before the war. He had a wife and 3 daughters back home, carried their picture in his breast pocket, showed it to anyone who'd look. Good man, kind man, the type who shouldn't have been anywhere near a war. Around 200 hours, the convoy stopped. Schmidt leaned out his window, trying to see what was happening. The lead truck had pulled over to the side of the road. After a moment, its driver got out and walked back toward us. "Roadblock," he said. "Tree down across the road. Recent too, probably Soviet partisans, could be an ambush." Our convoy commander, a tired-looking lieutenant named Baumer, made the decision quickly. "We can't risk it. We'll take the forest road. Adds an hour to the route, but it's safer than sitting here." The forest road was something we'd been told to avoid. Local civilians had warned us about it when we'd stopped to ask directions the previous day. An old woman had grabbed Baumer's arm, said something in Polish that our translator had difficulty conveying. Something about the road being bad, about people who went in not coming out, about sounds in the trees. Baumer had ignored her. Old women always had superstitions. The war was full of them. Now we didn't have a choice. We turned off the main track and onto the forest road. It was narrower, darker, the trees pressing in close on both sides. Ancient trees, thick and gnarled, their branches forming a canopy overhead that blocked out most of the moonlight. The convoy moved even slower here. The road twisted constantly, and visibility was almost zero. Schmidt kept muttering prayers under his breath, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. We'd been on the forest road maybe 20 minutes when we saw the first figure. A woman standing at the side of the road, just visible in the dim glow of our truck's masked headlights. She wore a simple dress, thin and white, completely inappropriate for January weather. Her hair was long and dark. Her feet were bare. She stood perfectly still as we passed, her face expressionless, her eyes following the truck. "Did you see that?" Schmidt whispered. I nodded. I'd seen. "Should we stop? She'll freeze out here." "Keep driving," I told him. Something about her felt wrong, off, like looking at a photograph where the perspective doesn't quite work. We drove for another few minutes. Then we saw another figure. Same dress, same dark hair, same bare feet, standing at the side of the road watching us pass. "That's the same woman," Schmidt said. "How did she get ahead of us?" "It's not the same woman," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed that. "Just similar." But then we saw a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. All identical, all wearing the same thin white dress, all standing motionless at the side of the road, their eyes tracking our movement. Schmidt was breathing hard now, his prayers getting louder. "What is this? What are they?" The convoy kept moving. We had no choice. Stopping in the middle of this road felt more dangerous than whatever those figures were. By the time we'd seen the 20th woman, Schmidt was close to panic. So was I, though I tried not to show it. The women, if that's what they were, had started appearing on both sides of the road now. Dozens of them, hundreds, all identical, all watching. None of them moved. None of them spoke. They just stood there among the trees, their white dresses almost glowing in the darkness, their eyes reflecting our headlights like animal eyes. Then the lead truck stopped again. Baumer got out, walked back. His face was pale. "The road is blocked, not by a tree, by them. They're standing across the road. We can't get through." Schmidt looked like he was going to be sick. "We have to turn around. We have to." "Can't," Baumer said. "Road's too narrow. Trucks can't turn around. We'd have to reverse all the way back." "Then we reverse." Baumer shook his head. "Look behind us." We looked. The road behind was filled with them. The women in white dresses, standing shoulder to shoulder, blocking our retreat. They hadn't been there 30 seconds ago. But now they were, dozens of them, their faces blank and pale in the darkness. We were trapped. Baumer made a decision. We go forward, on foot if we have to. Abandon the trucks, take what weapons we can carry and push through. There's no other option. We gathered what we could, rifles, ammunition, a few medical supplies. 12 men total from the 6 trucks. We formed up in a loose column, weapons ready, and started walking toward the wall of figures blocking the road ahead. As we got closer, I could see them more clearly. They weren't quite right. Their skin was too white, too smooth, like porcelain. Their eyes were dark and empty, and they didn't breathe. I watched for several seconds, focused on one in particular. Her chest never moved. Her mouth never opened. She was perfectly, absolutely still. "Maybe they'll move," Schmidt whispered beside me. "Maybe if we just—" The women opened their mouths. All of them simultaneously, their jaws dropping open in perfect unison, and from those mouths came a sound that I still hear in nightmares. Not screaming, not words, something between the two. A high, keening wail that seemed to come from everywhere at once, from the trees, from the ground, from the sky. It vibrated in your chest, in your bones, in your teeth. Several of the men fell to their knees, hands over their ears. Schmidt dropped his rifle. Baumer was shouting orders, but I couldn't hear him over that sound. Then the women started moving. Not walking, gliding. Their feet never touching the ground, just sliding forward through the air, their arms rising slowly, fingers spreading, reaching toward us. "Run," someone shouted. We scattered, formation forgotten, discipline forgotten, just blind panic, men crashing through the trees, stumbling over roots, falling in the snow. That sound followed us, growing louder, closer, mixing with our own screaming. I don't remember how long I ran. Minutes. Hours. Time had stopped meaning anything. Eventually, I tripped over something and fell hard, the wind knocked out of me. I lay there in the snow, gasping, waiting for those white hands to grab me. But nothing happened. The sound had stopped. The forest was silent. I got up slowly, looking around. Trees, snow, darkness. No sign of the women, no sign of my unit, no sign of the road. I was alone. I wandered for the rest of the night, trying to find my way out of that forest. Dawn finally came, gray and cold, and I stumbled onto a main road where a retreating Wehrmacht unit found me and took me in. I tried to tell them what happened, tried to explain about the forest road and the women in white. They nodded politely and put me in a truck heading west. I think they assumed I was shell-shocked. Maybe I was. Of the 12 men from our convoy, only 3 of us made it out of that forest. Me, Schmidt, and one other soldier I'd never spoken to. The rest were never found. The trucks were never found. The entire convoy just vanished. Schmidt and I were separated shortly after. I heard he made it home after the war. I hope that's true. I hope he's with his wife and daughters now, showing them that photograph he always carried. I also hope he never dreams about those women, never hears that sound in his sleep, never wakes up wondering if they're still out there on that forest road, still waiting, still watching, still reaching. December 1941. The push toward Moscow had stalled. The German army, which had swept across Europe like a storm, had finally met something it couldn't defeat: the Russian winter and the stubborn refusal of Soviet soldiers to break. I was with an infantry company dug in near a small village whose name I've forgotten. We'd taken the village 3 days earlier, but holding it proved harder than capturing it. Soviet forces kept probing our lines, testing for weakness, launching small attacks throughout the day and night. The trenches we dug were shallow and crude. The ground was frozen too hard for proper excavation, so we'd mostly piled dirt and snow into low walls, created firing positions that barely qualified as cover. Men stood watch in 2-hour shifts, stamping their feet to keep circulation going, blowing into their gloves, counting the minutes until they could retreat to the relative warmth of the village houses. I drew middle watch on a particularly bitter night. Temperature had dropped to somewhere around -30, the kind of cold that turns your breath to ice crystals before it leaves your mouth, the kind that makes your rifle freeze if you're not careful. I was alone in my section of trench, about 20 meters from the nearest man on either side, far enough that you felt isolated but close enough that you could shout for help if needed. The line was stretched thin. We didn't have enough men to properly defend our position, but command kept pretending we did. My watch started at 200 hours. I took my position, checked my rifle, and settled in for 2 hours of misery. The night was absolutely silent. No wind, no movement, just cold and darkness and the faint light of stars reflecting off snow. Occasionally, you'd hear a distant sound, artillery, maybe, or trees cracking under the weight of ice, but mostly there was nothing. I'd been there about 40 minutes when I heard footsteps. Crunching, getting closer, someone walking through the snow toward my position. My first thought was Soviet soldiers, infiltrators trying to reach our lines. I raised my rifle, clicked off the safety as quietly as possible, and waited. The footsteps continued, slow, steady, not trying to be stealthy, just a measured walk like someone taking an evening stroll. A figure emerged from the darkness. A German soldier. I could tell from the uniform, the helmet. He walked directly toward my trench, his movements casual, relaxed. "Halt," I called out softly. "Password." He didn't respond, just kept walking. I said, "Halt, give me the password or I shoot." He stopped maybe 10 meters away, close enough that I could see his face in the starlight. He was young, maybe 19, pale skin, dark eyes. His uniform was clean, too clean. No mud, no dirt, nowhere that every uniform on the Eastern Front showed after a few days. "The password," I repeated. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. Then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was wrong somehow, too wide, too fixed. "I don't remember the password," he said. His voice was quiet, flat. "I've been out there a long time. It's hard to remember things after you've been in the cold so long." Something about him made my skin crawl. "What unit are you with?" "Same as you," he said. "We're all the same unit out here, all the same in the end." He started walking again, coming closer. "Stop right there or I will shoot you." He didn't stop, just kept coming, that smile still fixed on his face. 10 meters became 8, 8 became 6. I fired. The rifle crack shattered the silence. The bullet hit him center mass. I saw the impact, saw his body jerk backward. But he didn't fall. He looked down at his chest where the bullet had hit, then back up at me. The smile never changed. "That doesn't work anymore," he said. "I'm already cold, already frozen, already gone. The bullet doesn't mean anything to someone who's already dead." My hands were shaking. I worked the bolt, chambered another round, fired again, hit him again. Same result. He just kept walking, kept smiling, kept getting closer. 4 meters, 3. "We're all waiting out there," he said, gesturing vaguely toward the darkness behind him. "All of us who didn't make it, all of us who froze or bled or got left behind. We're all waiting, and we get lonely. We want company. We want someone to talk to in the dark, someone to share the cold with. Won't you come with me? Won't you come see what it's like out there?" He reached the edge of the trench. I stumbled backward, slipped, fell. My rifle went flying. He stood there above me, silhouetted against the stars, still smiling that terrible smile. "It's not so bad once you get used to it," he said. "The cold becomes warm. The dark becomes light. The fear becomes peace. You just have to let go, just have to stop fighting. Just have to accept that this is where you belong now, with us, with all of us." He reached down, his hand extended toward me. I found my voice, started screaming, not words, just raw terror given sound. Within seconds, I heard shouts from both sides, footsteps running, other soldiers rushing toward my position. The figure looked up toward the approaching sounds. His smile finally faded. "Not yet then," he said. "But soon, we'll be back soon. We're always back because this is our home now. This frozen ground, this endless winter, this war that never stops. We belong here, and soon so will you." He stepped backward away from the trench, 3 steps, 4. Then he simply faded, didn't run, didn't turn, just faded away into the darkness like smoke dispersing in wind. Other soldiers reached my position, found me in the bottom of the trench, shaking, unable to speak. They asked what happened. I tried to explain, tried to tell them about the visitor, about what he'd said. They looked at each other with knowing expressions. One of them, a veteran named Schultz, pulled me aside. "You're not the first," he said quietly. "Others have seen them, the frozen ones, the ones who didn't make it. They come sometimes when it's coldest, when we're most alone. They want us to go with them, want us to give up. But you can't listen to them. You can't let them touch you. Because if you do, you'll become like them. Stuck here forever. Stuck in this winter that never ends." I asked if he'd seen them too. He nodded slowly. "Once, back in November, before the temperature really dropped, a whole group of them standing just beyond our perimeter, watching us, waiting. They didn't speak that time, but they didn't need to. I could see it in their eyes, the invitation, the promise that the cold could stop hurting if I just walk out there and join them." "What did you do?" I looked away, turned my back, pretended they weren't there. Eventually they left, or faded, or whatever it is they do, but I know they'll come back. They always come back, because there are more of them every day. More men who don't make it, more soldiers who freeze in the night or die in the fighting, and they all end up out there in the darkness waiting for company. I spent the rest of my watch in silence, refusing to look into the darkness beyond our lines, refusing to think about what might be standing there, watching, waiting. 3 weeks later, our unit was withdrawn. We retreated west, giving up the ground we'd fought so hard to take. I was eventually transferred to another front, then another, and somehow survived until the end. But I never forgot that night. Never forgot the visitor with his terrible smile and his cold invitation. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I can hear footsteps in the darkness outside my window, convinced someone is walking toward my house with that same measured pace, that same casual certainty. And I know sooner or later he'll come back. They all will. Because as Schultz said, they're always looking for company, always waiting, always cold, always patient. And the winter on the Eastern Front never really ends. Not for them, not for the frozen ones who never made it home. It goes on forever, dark and cold and endless. And they're still out there, still waiting, still smiling. Which story scared you the most? Leave a comment below and subscribe for more real horror stories.